Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco, your personal financial quarterback. Whether you've had years of success in your business or are just starting out, DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family and guide you toward the fulfillment of that goal. As they say, you can't choose your family, but you can choose your virtual family office. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco. Today is his inaugural podcast. I'm really excited. This is your first opportunity to get to know Matt, a little bit about him, his practice, and actually him personally as well. I've got about 16, 17 questions that we're going to go over just to give you an opportunity to know who he is, what he does, and why he does it. So let's get started. Good morning, Matt. How are you?
I'm just great, Eric. How about yourself?
Fantastic. Are you excited?
That's awesome. I am.
Me too. All right, so this is the big one. This is the inaugural. This is where you make your first impression, and you only get one time, right? I mean, not to make you nervous.
Thanks. I certainly appreciate that. So
stack on that pressure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. That's all I need.
That's all you need. All right, so the first couple questions, or first probably 8 or 9 questions, are really about your practice, about your history. So let's dive into those, and then we're going to transition into some personal questions just so the audience can get to know you on more of a personal level. Let's start at the beginning. You know, how did you make your decision to get into this industry specifically? And tell us just a little bit about your history.
Well, it's actually interesting. It was really by chance. My family is, my grandparents were immigrants that came over to this country. They were entrepreneurs themselves. My grandfather became an attorney, as did my dad and my uncle. So they kind of grew up in this family practice. And I never had an interest in getting into law, but I always had this entrepreneurial spirit. Mm-hmm. Yet there was some things that kind of kept me from fears that I had that kind of kept me from taking the step. So I worked in corporate sales for a number of years for a couple different companies. And I got to a point where I just kind of got sick of working for the man. And I was looking for a business to get into. And it just happened that a headhunter found my resume and said, "Hey, did you ever think about financial services?" And I was like, "No, never thought about it." So he put me in touch with a couple of the big wirehouse firms, and I talked to them. And as I kind of explored this, I really saw it as a way that I could start a business, kind of have an entrepreneurial spirit, have the backing of a firm, and also be able to help people in a lot of different ways that they couldn't normally get in their lives. So that's really how it just kind of evolved. I started with one of the large wirehouse firms. We were bought about 4 years later by a more regional firm. And then about 4 years after that, I actually started DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office.
Fantastic. And something that always interests me is kind of family history like that. Your grandparents and parents, they were in a very personal service, right? So it was a very personal one-on-one type of service, which that's what attorneys do. And
exactly.
You had that entrepreneurial service, but you didn't just do any type of business. You are doing a personal one-on-one type of service. So, I mean, you're following in those footsteps, even though it's a completely different industry, it's still that same spirit, which is just beautiful. I love to see that multi-generational passion come out in people. And I think that makes for a better story and for a more successful person personally, because you've got the backing of a family that's done the same thing. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually interesting because I think inherently we like people, my family, and like working with people and like trying to help people.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So maybe it wasn't law, but it was kind of in a different bent. But that's really what my passion is really helping people.
Great. So speaking of people, who do you work with and kind of what is your specialty?
Well, my core specialty is working with small business owners and especially with family businesses. The reason that is because they have very unique needs. I think the biggest challenge that family businesses has is they have to have an understanding how their business is a part of them. It's almost like a child and how it affects their life, and then how their life also affects their business and how they're intertwined.
So I'm going to ask a kind of a 2-part question, Matt, following up on that. What do you do for your clients specifically, and what do you think your biggest challenges are?
Well, from a very top view, the biggest thing I do for my clients is basically help them to develop a vision, not only for their business, but also for their lives, and how we can incorporate the family in that vision. And that's also probably the biggest challenge that I face, because most business owners have never really thought about this. They're nose to the grindstone. They're looking at building their business. And a lot of times they kind of look up after 20, 30 years of doing this business and saying, what's the future look like?
Yeah.
And so it's getting them to kind of shift their thinking and look forward, but then help them to put a plan in place currently that'll help them to achieve that vision down the road.
So would you say one of the hardest things, and I've worked with small business owners as a coach and consultant for many, 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 many years. And I don't want to put words in your mouth by any means, but would you say that it's kind of difficult to have an owner step on the outside of their business to kind of take a look from your perspective and help them see it that way?
Very much so, because they're so involved with that business, and especially if the children are involved. What the kids don't typically understand is this is something that their parent has birthed.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it is like a child. And so to get them to kind of look at it from maybe a different view or a different paradigm can be a very difficult process.
Yeah. So we've talked about business owners, and I know, and you mentioned families as well. Who is your ideal client?
Ideally, it's really, again, it's that business owner or the professional that owns their own practice, because a lot of them don't look at themselves as business owners, but they really are.
Yeah.
They either have neither the time, the interest, nor the expertise to navigate through the problems they face. Now, there's basically three criteria that I look at. First off, they got to be likable. I gotta like them. They gotta like me, because if that synergy is not there, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Second, they got to be coachable. They got to be willing to listen to advice and then act on it. And then the third one is I want them to be an advocate, somebody who will say, hey, talk to their friends and say, you need to talk to Matt. He's helped us through this situation.
Matt, you spoke about, that you got to have that relationship. I mean, that is key, absolutely key to any business success, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion, but I really believe that wholeheartedly. And I know that through our conversations before, you do get clients from referrals. Besides referrals, is there any other way that you gain clients?
The biggest way, and it's actually, and part of this podcast is part of the strategy, is through different aspects of social media. The biggest challenge I've always run into is people don't understand how this type of practice works, because it's kind of out of the box. It's not what their traditional advisor does. So I've been actually doing a lot of weekly videos, posts to social media to basically start getting the message. And we're starting to get a lot of feedback and also interest in what we're doing through social media.
Great. No, that's fantastic. We're going to, at the end of this podcast, I want to make sure that we're pointing people to if you have a YouTube channel, if you've got, obviously you've got a website. So we'll give out that information at the end of the podcast. Folks, stay tuned for that. You're going to want to go check out his stuff. I have actually seen a couple videos, and as excited as he is on this podcast, he's fired up on the videos too. So you got to see this guy in action for sure. It's fantastic.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no. And what kind of client education do you do? I mean, you've got a client that comes in, or you got a prospect that comes in, or that you've met online, or you're doing video conferencing with. How do you educate these folks? What do you do?
The first step is really, once we've kind of created that vision that I talked about, is really helping them to set up a plan in place. And so we talk about different aspects of a plan, not just about the financial end, but how do we manage risk and different ways to be able to do that. I introduce them a lot of times, if they've got a specific problem that's outside my area of expertise, to part of my team. And that's actually gets into this whole idea of what the virtual family office is that I've got a team of outside experts that I can bring in to help solve that client's situation or to implement the plan of action that we want to put into place. And then I'm also looking at doing, we do seminars with my team members, maybe in a specific area. Maybe it might be employee benefits or in maybe on a personal level, college planning, those type of things. We do seminars and webinars to be able to educate the clients on these different aspects of life.
That's awesome. And that leads me right into my next question. I mean, you already brought up your team. And audience, I know that this is the first podcast. I know this is the first opportunity for you to get to know Matt a little bit, and you don't know me, so you don't have to take my word for it. I want you to visit him and have a conversation with him to find out who he truly is. But Matt is a humble guy. Right off the bat, meeting him, one of the first things he was telling me is, look, I can't do all this by myself. There's nobody on earth that is educated in all the complexities of what business owners and families face in situations like this. I have a team. So that to me, that's pretty humble. So tell me about your team. Who's on your team? What do they do? Can we go through the entire team? Because I'm pretty sure it's robust. If not, let's give us the highlights, and we'll send people to the site to learn about them.
Sure, Eric. I think the first thing is to give maybe just a top view idea of what a virtual family office is. It's actually interesting. I just shot a video on this. And so first off, you got to know what a family office is. And what the family office was designed for. It was designed for ultra high net worth investors to basically have a one-stop shop where they could not only get just investment management, but they would get financial planning, tax planning, charitable giving strategies.
Yes.
Maybe even concierge services. The thing about it was because it's developed for the ultra high net worth, the fees can run in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in my 15 years of working with business owners, I found that they needed a lot of the same resources, but didn't have access to them. So over the last these 15, 20 years that I've been not only in this business, but also in previous sales, I've developed a network of professionals in all kinds of different areas. And these people are experts. They could be everything from business succession planning, CPAs, attorneys, college planning. I've got somebody who does cross borders when I have situations with clients that might have dual citizenship or maybe live overseas, those type of things. I have access to this team. So when a client hires us, they're not just getting me, but they're also getting access to the team. And I'll pull that person in to be able to help coordinate the solution. And I work as the personal financial quarterback for the client.
That's a great way to put it. I love that. The financial quarterback, you're orchestrating. For anybody who knows football, you know that the quarterback is orchestrating so many things at the same time as the other players, the other team members are doing their own thing. The running back is doing his thing. The guys up front blocking are doing their thing, and you're back there making sure everybody's going the right route, going the right direction. That's perfect.
Exactly. See, I can speak their language, of the professional's language, and then translate it to the client. So that's where my value really comes in when we're working with these outside professionals, because a lot of times they don't have the questions to ask. If I could give a quick example, I was just with a client. We were navigating some long-term care issues, and I was with the client and was making the phone call to the insurance company to try to get a claim processed. And it took us about 5 minutes. And I hung up the phone, and the client looked at me and said, "You made that look so easy." And I said, "That's because this is what I do."
Well, yeah. I mean, all the different silos of professionals use different jargon, right? And that's one of the biggest issue with even financial advisors with clients is that they use jargon that the client doesn't necessarily understand and maybe a little bit embarrassed to ask because, I feel like I should know this, but I'm just going to let them keep talking and pretend like I know it. I've been in that situation. And for me, I'll be honest. It's my pride. I don't want to say, "Hey, I don't know what that word means. Can you explain that really slowly for me?" But that's what I feel like inside, even though it's just jargon. So having you be able to do that and kind of break everything down to make it so it's digestible and understandable and so they can actually make a good decision based on the correct knowledge. That's invaluable. That's the fantastic. So Matt, what do you do in the community?
Well, I'm heavily involved with my parish, with my church.
Nice.
Involved in youth ministry. I work in the religious education program. prayer ministry, those type of things. I'm also on the boards of I was on the board of the YMCA. I'm on the board of the Independent Catholic Foundation, which is basically a foundation designed to create endowments for charitable causes. I'm involved with our local chamber. Sometimes my wife says I'm involved too much.
Yeah, that's I could see that, but it goes right back to who you are and what your family has represented for 3 generations, right? You're a
That's
servant.
right.
So that's
right.
Yeah. No, I think that's a beautiful thing, and I'm pretty sure that your wife can rein you in every once in a while if necessary, right?
That's exactly right.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, Matt. Let's. This is the last question for kind of your history and background. I'm going to ask you this, and I just want you to whatever comes to the top of your head first. What is your business philosophy?
It's really twofold. I would say the first is to always provide value to those I interact with. Mm-hmm. Part of my initial process is I always offer a 30-minute, no obligation, no fee consultation call, just intro call. And my promise is that I'll give anybody 30 minutes, and even if I can't help them, I will get them at least directed in the way they need to be going.
Nice.
So it's always about providing value.
Yeah.
I think the second thing is to always enrich somebody's life, to always make somebody's life better in some way.
Fantastic. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. That's the end of the tough questions, man. Are you ready for the fluff stuff, the personal?
Softballs.
Yes,
yeah,
the softballs.
We'll take. I could take a little hanging curveball right now. So.
All right. I'll bring it in real slow, real easy on this first question. Matt,
No
when you're
problem.
not working, what do you do for fun, man?
Well, I spend time with the family. We try to do that. Although, I'm at a point now. 2 of my boys are already gone. I've got 4 of them, and
all 4 boys.
Yeah. 4 boys, yeah.
Wow.
So,
all right.
Yeah, I always tell people my wife and I are practicing Catholic birth control right now. We've got our own rooms. Anyway, so spend time with the family. But I love playing tennis. Tennis is like my game now. Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's actually one of my goals this year is to just really kind of move up a level. USTA has different levels. I love working out. I work with a trainer 2 days a week. I also do cardio on my own. Voracious reader. I mean, a lot of my knowledge base has just come from reading. I've got books and books. I mean, behind me, if you were looking at my office, you would see bookshelves, and that's maybe a 10th of the number of books I have. I mean, I've just got books stored away in the attic. So love to read, traveling, and working within my church is really, it's a passion for me, and it's something I enjoy doing.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. What would you do if you had all the money you ever needed? All the money you could, you just literally, you walk into you've got your attic full of books, but all of a sudden it just turns all into cash, right? And you enter another room in your house and it's just stacked with cash. You've got all the money you could ever need. What would you do?
Well, good. This is going to sound so trite and altruistic, but it's really true. I don't need a lot to live. I mean, my wife and I, it's funny, I'll use this example with clients, is that my wife, if we retired, in my retirement plan, I love what I do, and so I'm not even looking at retiring. But if we did, my wife would want to have a 15,000 square foot mansion on the beach, and me, I just want to be Uncle Eddie from Christmas Vacation. Have a beat up RV and just travel around the country, visiting my kids and my grandkids and my clients, and just have a good time. So I really don't need a lot. So if I don't own the money in the world, I would just use what I needed and probably give the rest of it away.
That's great. And it really fits in with that Catholic birth plan with you having the RV in her driveway, right?
That's right.
Separate rooms.
Yeah. She said she wanted to retire to Maine. I said, I'll miss you. Can I come back every 2 weeks for conjugal visits?
Yeah, come on. Maine, if you're going to pick a beach anywhere, for all the Maine listeners, I'm sorry. But really?
Yes.
Up north, it's in the middle of a blizzard right now while we're recording this podcast at my house. No.
Wow.
If it's a beach, it's South Carolina or south from there. There's nothing north of that. Sorry. That's ugh. Ooh, it's cold up there. Okay, well.
I know. It is beautiful, but I don't mind
yes.
visiting, but I don't want to live there.
That's right. Okay, well, let's move on. Who is your favorite person in history, and give me why?
Well, it's Jesus Christ, of course. And I think that's obvious to believers. And if you're not a believer, come talk to me.
Yeah, can have that conversation too. All right. Well, really, I don't need to ask the why question because as a Christian myself, I get it.
Right.
I understand why. All right. Next question. What is your idea of success?
My idea of success, that really comes down, and I steal this term from a guy named Matthew Kelly, and it's really, I define it as when I'm striving to be the best version of myself. Mm-hmm. And I really took a lot of time to think about that because it's actually part of the business planning process that I go through with my coach, is to really define what success really is. And there's a lot of factors out there that are out of our control, but the one thing I can control is how good can I become?
Yeah.
And so that's really what I say is as long as I'm always striving to be that best version of myself, I would consider that success.
Great. What is one thing that you recommend most to clients, family, or friends? And I ask this question, but I'm going to tell you, it can be anything. It could be pizza. It could be a book. It could be, relax and take naps every day. Whatever kind of advice. What would you recommend to anybody?
Well, it's funny because I guess because my business is so tied up in my life, it usually does have to do with the business. And the first one is get a plan in place, whether it's a financial plan, whether it's a career plan, whether it's a college plan, whatever. Or I had a son that was a football player, and I made him put a plan in place. What's your training schedule going to look like? All of those type of things. So the second part after the plan is get someone who can help you to execute that plan. So again, with my football playing son, we got trainers, we got coaches, we hired people that could help him through the recruiting process, all those type of things. I think it's really important to have people who are experts in certain areas to be able to help guide you toward the goals that you have. And the third thing, and I tell everybody this, I tell my kids this, I tell all the young people I work with, I tell older people, save money, save. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a get-rich permanent. And the only way that you can do that is to continue to save money on a regular basis.
Yeah, and by just starting it, that's discipline. That's the biggest issue I think that people face is that they don't do it because they just haven't started. Once you start and you start to see a little bit of success, then it becomes a discipline, and you can do it a little bit more. You can do a little bit more, and it works out fantastically. Obviously, as a financial advisor, you know that.
Well, it's actually interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen the example of taking a penny a day and doubling it.
Oh, yeah.
And, in the first, if you did that over 30 days, the first 15 days, it doesn't look like you're making any progress. And I think that's where people get discouraged, not understanding that it's in day 28, 29, 30 where that's where the real money's made.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and all of us get off track every once in a while. As much energy as you have right now, I know there's got to be times when you just aren't as energetic as you are right now, or in your business history, you've had some times where you have to, maybe you're at some crossroads, or you're just wondering what direction you're going to go in. So what is your mantra, motto, or something that you say to yourself to help you stay on track and focused?
It's really about always trying to be that best version of myself. And also, I think another thing, and this was interesting, a few years ago, my coach is really big on mindset, about how do we get the right mindset. And part of that whole dialogue is about what's your self-image. And so I remember we were sitting in Toronto one day. There's like 12 of us that are part of this mastermind group, and he made us hold these mirrors up and look into them and then describe what we saw in there. And so we're writing these things out. And I kind of looked at it, and I went up to him and I said, "Hey, Joe," I said, "I don't see any problem here." And he just kind of looked at me. He goes, "You're just deflecting." But anyway, reminding myself about who I am, that I am the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
That I can look in the mirror and I can see one thing, but a lot of times internally, I don't always see that. So I have to remind myself all the time, remember that man in the mirror.
Yeah. All right, Matt, we're to my favorite question, and I love this one. What is one thing that most people don't know about you?
The one thing is that I was actually a professional photographer for about 4.5 years. Did
Really?
a lot of commercial work. I was actually a freelance photojournalist. So I've always had a passion for photography. Did it for years. When I'd left school, I moved to Colorado, and then I was living in Boston. When I came back, I had the opportunity to guy starting a business, kind of a family photography business, needed somebody to help him with his darkroom work. And then from there, just started doing freelance work. And that's what I did. I used to go out on news stories and shoot pictures and sports and all that fun stuff. Yeah, it was cool.
Do you do any photography now besides just, family stuff? Or do you try to get out and just kind of take a day and do some photography?
I don't. And it's actually interesting. I've got, my camera's actually sitting behind me here, and I've been talking about getting out to do it more, but, with all the other things I have on my plate, I don't get the chance to get out as much. So it's on my list. It's on my goal sheet that I have on my business plan, but, I've just got to take the initiative to start getting back involved in it. I got to learn the whole digital platform now.
I know, right? Yeah, because you said darkroom.
I was
like,
filmed.
Absolutely. Well, tell your coach that's one of your goals for 2020 or 2021. All right, because I know the coach will hold you accountable.
Will do. Thanks. Yeah.
Matt, if you had to pick one thing, what's your proudest achievement?
I think seeing my kids develop into kind and mature adults.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the hardest job that anybody can ever have. And I actually give my wife most of the credit for that. I probably shouldn't even take any credit for it, because I believe me, I've messed them up more than I'd like to admit.
Yeah, I know a lot of fathers are in the same boat, and that would be me. I'm right there with you with the other oar. We're paddling together on that one.
Exactly. But I'm going to take her credit. Can I do that?
Yes,
right,
absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely. And make sure she listens to this too, because that'll get you a few brownie points and maybe out of the RV for a little bit. Who knows?
Okay, yeah, that's good.
All right, we're wrapping this up. I mean, that was super easy. And now I'm going to ask you for kind of some teasers and things.
Okay.
This podcast is nationwide. This podcast is going to reach, hopefully worldwide. It can be downloaded anywhere and listened to anywhere. And you have the attention of a whole bunch of people. I need you to kind of tell me who should be listening to this podcast, and then I'm also going to ask you for a sneak preview. What are we going to be talking about?
Okay. Podcast, I think anybody who owns a family business or is involved in one would be the first group that I would say needs to listen to this.
Okay.
I think the second group is anyone who is looking for guidance in multiple areas of their life, because just like business is a part of life, so are our careers, so our whether it's our church life, whether it's our community life, they all intertwine. And I think people kind of miss this. They try to segregate things out, but you just can't. And so we're going to be addressing a lot of different areas, not just on the financial end, but we're going to be looking at psychologies, people's behavior patterns. We're going to talk about music, because I should have put music as one of my passions. That's one of them. Photography, art, those type of things. So it's going to be a very broad. And I think anybody who's looking for guidance in multiple areas, we'll bring in different experts on those areas. And so those are really the two, I think. Having somebody who is either owns a family business or is involved in one, and then somebody who's just looking for guidance in these multiple areas of their life.
Great. That's awesome. All right. And then one of the most important questions for all the listeners out there, if somebody's listening to you during this podcast and in future podcasts, and they say, you know what, I like what he's saying. I'm very interested in finding out more about what a virtual office is, what a virtual family office is, what that looks like, how that could fit into my scenario. And I want to reach out. How do they get a hold of you?
Well, the easiest way is go to my website. That's DiFranVFO.com, and that's DiFranVFO.com. You can go on there. You can check us out. There's a tab that says Meet the Team. If you want to see some of the experts that I work with, that I team with, they're on there. There's also a tab up on the right-hand side that says Schedule an Intro Call. And on that tab, you can get on my calendar, schedule 30 minutes. There's no fee, no obligation, just to chat to see, what your situation is and if there's any way that I can help you. You can also email me at matt@dfranfc.com. Those are probably the two easiest ways to get in touch with us.
Awesome. Love it. All right. I'm looking forward to hearing more and more and more about your passions and what makes you tick through all these podcasts that we have coming up, and really diving into what a virtual family office is and how your team interacts. So I'm excited. I'm ready to go. Thank you so much for your time today, Matt.
Well, no problem, Eric. Thank you for yours. I appreciate your guidance here.
You betcha. And thank you all for listening to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, which I can tell you have not because this is the very first one, please click that subscribe now button below. This way, when Matt comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family and coworkers. Again, thanks so much for listening today. For everyone at DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment, legal, or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or another qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your business or personal planning. DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC, doing business as DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office, is a registered investment advisor. Registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or any state securities authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training.